in brightest day, in blackest night. All other podcasts tremble in fright. Losers cower before the power. Oranges lust and blues you can trust. Indigos feel and white ones heal. Yellows scare and green ones dare. That sapphire love and black hands glove will rock your foundation without hesitation. Chad and Mars face evil's might. Respect their power, for they'll make you see the light. Hi, everybody. I'm Chad Bokelman.
I'm Mark Marble.
And this is the LanternCast.
Episode 655.
Mark's favorite word, hodgepodge.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, there is some connected tissue here, and there's been stuff added into the podge. It's probably going to be a busy next couple of weeks in general, just with news coming out and different things.
Yeah, we got San Diego coming up, and this coming weekend as we record this, right?
No, as when people will next week. When people hear this, it'll be the week. It'll be the week of Comic-Con. Comic-Con's next weekend.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry, I got my dates messed up, but
that's all right. I never tend to remember which week it is. No, I'm pretty sure Comic-Con begins next week.
I think we should have a dedicated episode to it. I would assume. Obviously, this is thinking aloud, folks. This is not set in stone. The only reason I say that though is because lanterns, duh. But also, Godzilla stuff probably is happening during that time, which we talk about all the time. So it just feels like a bigger Comic-Con this time around. And also Doomsday, I would assume they're going to be doing some Doomsday stuff. So like it's probably going to be worth it to have its own dedicated episode. But obviously we'll have to wait and see what comes out.
Yeah, it is likely, and I was thinking this too. It is likely that, well, we haven't had that many dedicated pure Comic-Con episodes, I think, over the last few years because there hasn't been a lot. I mean, Marvel didn't even go last year. There was no Hall H presentation, I believe, from Marvel, from the MCU, and James Gunn continues not to have one, period, which is great for him. I don't get it. I don't get that at all. But nonetheless, maybe it means something. I mean, if he waits long enough, he'll never have an opportunity to worry about it again. But between the Marvel stuff, I would suspect we're going to get some Marvel announcements about different projects, if not casting. We know, though, I don't know how much we're going to get out of the Green Lantern thing, which is kind of like stuck in the afternoon anyway, I believe. I think it's Friday. I think when people are listening to this, it'll be this coming Friday, in the afternoon. But you're right, between other various announcements and related to different things, including Godzilla, and we might get, there will probably be enough for us to delve into doing another episode, which was fine because Green Lantern comes out next week, right?
I think so. Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up now.
Yeah, so it's always possible there's always possible we could combine them too. I mean, because Lord knows I would suspect we can do Green Lantern and name that tune. We can review this book in 10 minutes, probably, in all likelihood, when it comes out. But either way, well, I would suspect you are correct that we'll probably do a lot of Comic-Con stuff and everything else. So this is almost like a pre-Comic-Con episode, considering we're all over the map with different things. But so I think we decided we're going to start with something Green Lantern-esque, shocker, considering the podcast. So let's do sales.
Alrighty.
Well, let's do Green Lantern sales, which as expected came out shortly after we recorded the last episode. A couple of days. It's not like we just missed it by a day. It wasn't our typical bad luck. Hey, it came out the Thursday after. No, I don't think it actually came out until Monday morning this week. But Green Lantern, on the bright side, Green Lantern only has to drop 9 more spots to make me go from Nostradamus to Nostradamus about my prediction that we were at least going to go down to 150 during the Kyle run. Because Green Lantern has dropped, number 36 dropped down to 141 on the ICP2 charts, which is down 20 spots from last month And if you're looking at the free fall from the artificially inflated jump up for Green Lantern 600, number 33, that means it's dropped 73 spots since issue 33. Not good. And I don't really see any. I don't necessarily really think there's any reason to believe it's going to stop falling anytime soon, considering the arc that we're in now. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, since the first hint via solicits that we're going to get something maybe different coming might be issue 39. That means we still have 37, which is about to come out, and 38, which will be very Kyle Odyssey heavy, almost guaranteed. So, I mean, it may have a floor. The floor maybe not. Maybe it won't drop much lower than it is. Maybe, but it's not. I mean, but who knows? You can't really say it at this point. Like I said, it's dropped 73 spots in the last 3 issues. So, Green Lantern Corps is a very interesting roller coaster. Green Lantern Corps was 113 last month. It dropped all the way down to 155 this month. So that's a 42 spot drop. So Green Lantern Corps has lost 52 spots over the last 2 months. It went from it was 158, which is interesting. It was 158 the month of Green Lantern 33. So there was no immediate, if there was any benefit of Green Lantern for Green Lantern Corps, it didn't happen that month. But then it went from 158 all the way up to 103, and then only dropped to 113, so it only dropped 10 spots, and then now it just took a huge plunge down to 155 with Green Lantern Corps 17. And that's not even the one we just reviewed, right? Because we reviewed the one 18 was the one we reviewed, and that's July.
Yeah.
So we actually like 17. So I don't quite understand why this is dropping as much. I mean, I mean, Chad and I have speculated that maybe you got an artificial rising tide lifts all boats kind of benefit to it, but it is kind of odd if that's the case and it happened the month after. But maybe it's possible. But then again, jumping 55 spots, I don't know why I would have jumped from 158 to 103. That seems like a weird jump anyway. But nonetheless, either way, Green Lantern Corps is essentially back to where it was before its little 2 month rise or a 2 month improvement from where it was previously. And Green Lantern is actually, I think, below where it was. I'm pretty sure Green Lantern was 136 with number 32, because I think I remember that, hey, that's a 50% increase when it went up to 68. For what it's worth, not that we give a rat's, you know what, about Absolute. I guess there were 2 issues of Absolute that technically dropped in June. So the first one, Green Absolute 15, was number 31, which is still weak for Absolute. But the more interesting thing is Absolute 16 was number 73. So while we had already established when in the past, looking at these sales charts, that when there were 2 issues of Absolute, the second one always did significantly worse when they dropped in the same month. But that's a significant drop. That I would say absolutely that's the worst sales number we've had for a non-reprint issue of Absolute Green Lantern. And the fact that the best issue is now out of the top 30 at least gives the hint that maybe that book could finally be weakening a little bit. Let's see what happens with next month. But that's 73. It's pretty bad.
Comparatively, at least.
Yeah. I mean, if not to the rest of the Green Lantern line, they would kill to be number 73 regularly. I mean, they would kill for that to be a bad number for them. But it is interesting that that book could be weakening. Obviously, it's by far not the worst Absolute book, because the Absolute Flash is horrible. Absolute Flash number 15 was 174. So.
Yeah, Mark and I talked about Core a little bit in that, even though it's the better book, it's doing worse. And I didn't have a chance to research it, but I would assume that's just because I don't think anytime there's been, and I obviously messaged this to Mark, but so I'm just restating in here. I would assume that's because anytime there's been consecutively a Green Lantern title and a Green Lantern Corps title released at the same time, Corps is always the worst performing of the two, no matter what.
And that's probably true, because if you go back, it's probably relatively easy to check, because I don't think there's been that big a history of there being a Corps book and a Green Lantern book at the same time. That probably is just a creation of pretty much since the Johns era, I would assume. So yeah, and I think there was a hope that just because overall, based on quality and what is deserved, that Corps maybe would sell better, because of the fact that And I guess last month, obviously, it did. I mean, still was what, 113 last month, while Green Lantern was 121. But, and who knows? I mean, maybe Core will rise up again. It's obviously much more distressing that Green Lantern continues to drop, fall like a blind roofer. For what it's worth, Emperor Aquaman number 146 Emperor Aquaman 18 was 146. So Jeremy's not exactly packing them in. I forget what other books that he writes right now, but either way, those are crappy numbers no matter how you slice it. But yeah, so Green Lantern sales suck. Not that should surprise anybody right now, but I don't know. So now now it'll just be curious to see if we've hit the floor, if we actually hit the floor on these yet, or whether there's going to be more free fall. Like are we like in the range where this is where Green Lantern Corps can, it can't get any more. There's such a base support for the concept of Green Lantern Corps that it really can't drop much more? And are we kind of in the same point with Green Lantern, or is there really room to keep free falling at least for like another, 15 to 20, 25 spots before it's bad. It's bad that you have one book outside the top 150 and the other book is barely hanging on to the top 150.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Not a good sign for the line.
No, not at all.
And we're a little too close to Lanterns coming out for there not to be solicits about something in the comic side of the equation to help capitalize on that, whether that's new creative team or new series or whatever. I think at this point we should already have solicits for the month that Lanterns comes out, right?
Yeah, of course, because that would be if Green Lantern 37 comes out in July, then 38 would be the one that would come out in August. Mm-hmm. So technically speaking, we have solicits for almost the entire run of the show because it's only 8 episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think. So so they're not obviously directly tying anything in with the main book. There's always a chance we could get some stuff related to Core, but this is not good.
No. All right, what's next?
Well, see, it's funny because I originally figured you wouldn't want to discuss this at all, but I guess we should dip our toes into the Green Lantern, the Lanterns rumors, the potential leaks or spoilers for.
Yeah, so if you're worried about spoilers, guys, I guess skip the episode or something. I don't know. It's
well, you have to skip the episode. Probably maybe skip the next. I'll put a timestamp in for when this part begins, but maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. But.
Yeah, it's a rumor that went relatively viral, so we don't know if there's any truth to it. I think there could be truth to it in that the stuff we've heard about the show thus far, this could align with that, which is what I think gives this rumor credence. And the rumor is that Hal dies in the first episode. So, and when I say there are things we've heard about the show that could lend credence to it, the idea that Hal wouldn't be sticking around long, the idea that the Lanterns are there to investigate a death, that's probably the primary one, and so on and so forth. And that has a lot of people up in arms about this. And I will say just for myself right off the bat, and I've said it online in different spots, obviously like LanternCast Twitter and stuff like that, but like if it's true and it turns out to be true for the entire season, I'm not going to be happy about it. Just full stop. Okay, I'm not making any excuses or anything. Full stop. If Hal dies in the first episode and by the end of the season isn't back, or we have some ambiguous reference to the fact that he's returning or, something to that effect, I'll be upset. I am not immediately upset because we have all read comic books where people die and come back all the damn time. So even if it's true, there's plenty of opportunity for it not to be true by the end of said season. Now, that may be giving the creative team and everything too much leash, too much grace. I don't know. But I tend to think it's not true, but I have to allow for the possibility, especially given that it kind of aligns with some of the things we've heard about the show, that it could be true.
The things that make it, like, if you want to go connecting dots to make it the believability of it. Number one, let's be honest. We've talked about this before. The vibes off everything we've seen so far is that either they're doing a massive misdirect or they're just basically telegraphing it so when it happens, it's like, well, if you watch the trailers, well, why wouldn't you think he was going to die? We're making it crystal clear where this was headed. That the tone and based on who they want to focus in on, it seemed very likely that Hal was going to be put out to pasture one way or the other. The other thing that's a concern about this, I guess, circumstantially, is how Warner Brothers reacted to this and how they were coming after everybody to take this, and not just people who are the first people who posted it, but anybody like who posted a meme being funny about it or things like that. It's just they just came out. So it's not even coming after the people who were releasing like copyrighted material or it's just people that were talking about something that had already been basically become out there in the public knowledge. Consciousness, and then they were just coming after everybody to take anything down related to it. That's kind of a weird approach to it. And again, if it was total bullshit, then you would think that would not be the way they would react to it. The other thing that concerns, and it goes along with what you said, because I thought this too, that if Hal is dead by the end of episode 1, that yes, by the end of the series, we could find out that he's really not dead. That there's a reason why either he wanted us to think he was dead, or just the showrunners and the writers wanted us to think that he was dead. But that's possible. But the other thing that's problematic about it, if we assume that's not going to be the case, that it's not like a bait and switch, is that James Gunn had said previously that death was going to matter in the DCU. That it wasn't going to be where, oh, he's dead, but he got better. So if Hal is really dead, almost inarguably, undisputably dead, that the odds are that's it. I mean, yeah, technically speaking, if they wanted to bring him back as a Spectre, they could, because that would fit into something that's an out if they ever wanted to do that. But the odds are, if Hal is dead and he's dead at the end of that series, that he's dead and he ain't coming back. If this is true, this is a really shaky way. It's really illogical, because it might give you a nice little a shocking cliffhanger moment at the end of episode 1, but you're going to be hemorrhaging support. Doesn't mean everybody's not going to watch again, but they're going to kind of be numb. You know what? The thing that I equate it to is that if anybody who watched Terminator Dark Fate, that they had that scene shot whenever the hell it was supposed to be, early 90s, like I think it was in Venezuela, that when you had John Connor and Sarah Connor together, and that's when another another Arnold, another T-800 comes over and just kills John Connor right in the beginning of the movie. So right away the movie's not about John Connor, but the point is, you arguably lost your audience, diehard Terminator fans, right then, and maybe you could have got, maybe as the movie went on, maybe you got some of that back, but you're gonna have people just sitting there in shock and going, okay, you just killed the character, you just essentially killed the character the whole mythology has been built around, and you just killed him off unceremoniously, and now we're supposed to care about what happens next. That's what it's like. Obviously, the Jon Stewart fans won't care and things like that, but the reality is, yeah, it would be let's put it this way. Coming on the heels of Supergirl, this would not exactly be a smart way of hitting the ground running. But let's see. Maybe it's not true. I mean, I personally, if they're going to kill him off, it makes more sense to kill him off at the end.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is just that we knew going into this, before this rumor came out, that the thought was in the water that Hal would die by the end of the season. And that was its own thing, because you're wrestling with the idea of like, well, at least we get to see him for a whole season and stuff. But if you kill him by the first episode, why have him in there to begin with?
That's because of the dual timelines, and that's how they would justify it. That arguably the threat, we would assume the threat that ends up taking him out in episode 1 relates to the stuff that he and John were investigating 10 years earlier. via the
Oh, that's right. I
flashbacks.
forgot. We could still see him the entire
Oh,
season.
don't get me wrong. Yeah, I don't think it's even up for debate that we're going to see him all throughout the season.
Oh, okay.
It's just the fact that
I didn't even think about that, to be honest with you. I thought when I think Hal's dead in the first episode, I mean, we're not seeing him again. Totally forgot about the
yeah,
dual
no, I
story.
would say that's not even a I think a possibility because there's too much because again we have the dual storyline. So we assume the
Mhm.
2016 storyline is the stuff with him and John. If we
Yeah.
assume that, which is probably the safest way to assume that that's when he's training John 10 years ago, and that probably it's a storyline that's going on in current time, that's when, if they're going to kill off Hal, they're going to kill him off.
John's investigating the death of Hal.
Probably yes, and
Yeah.
it's gonna go back something that relates to Hal's death is going to relate to something that whatever he and John were investigating when John was being trained. That's the most logical way if they're going to go about
I
this.
could get behind it. It just you're narrowing the bandwidth I have for accepting it the more I learn about it. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's just like the funnel is getting tighter the closer we get to the release that I will be okay with the end product. There's still an opening, but the funnel is tighter than it was before.
Yeah, you're swimming upstream more and arguably unnecessarily. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, from a narrative perspective, it doesn't mean that there's no merit in following what happens to get you to that point, to understand how this connects. The problem, of course, or the problem would be, is that inarguably you're taking the most popular Green Lantern there's ever been, and who really hasn't been done right because we know Ryan Reynolds wasn't all his fault, but whatever pass we were going to give Ryan Reynolds for the 2011 died a long time ago since he doesn't shut his effing mouth about running a movie down that wasn't nearly as bad as he makes it out to be to begin with, and which he acknowledged himself when he actually saw it again. But that you're taking the most popular Green Lantern of all, and you're unceremoniously killing him off in the first episode of a Lantern show, and then realizing, yeah, we might be more appreciative of everything we see, potentially going back, seeing all these flashback scenes, but still, I mean, that's the only thing it does is obviously something that can take out Hal Jordan would be a pretty serious threat. That raises the
Would
stakes
hope.
clearly.
You would hope.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's taken out by fucking manhunters, like the rumor
Yeah,
suggests.
that is true. The other rumor is that relates to what John and Hal are looking into, I guess, in the town, is that it relates to
Mhm.
manhunters. And yeah, I mean, it's speculation. That's why we don't know. It's hard to really know what's going on here. But it wasn't the most shocking thing of all time across the board. Not just because they're
No.
killing him off, because I think we all think he's going to die in this show. Because they want us. I mean, I think because they literally want us. I think they're covering themselves. I think they literally want us to think he's going to die. So either because they're going to give us a ha ha ha, which I don't think, or so they can say, well, it was pretty well telegraphed. I mean, we weren't really making bones about what this show was about. People just weren't picking up on the clues.
Yeah, we were taking the edge off the news.
Yeah, but to kill him off in the first episode would, I don't know.
No, look, guys. I feel like for me, this is not the way everybody views Green Lantern fandom. I fully acknowledge that. For me, the core, the franchise, the history, the term Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps and what that means more to me than the man and or the character of Hal Jordan. Don't get me wrong, Hal is a very big and important part of that mythos. He's our POV character and has been since we were introduced to this franchise in the 60s with, all of the stuff that John Broome and Gil Kane and everybody did over there, and Julie Schwartz and in his work in adapting the Golden Age characters into their Silver Age versions. Hal has been our POV character. I understand his importance. But what I love about this franchise is not solely rooted in Hal Jordan and Hal Jordan alone, which was why I am still willing to give the show a chance, even added to the fact that we haven't seen Lantern Media get a chance this big in 15 years, and I cannot bring myself to shit all over this thing and just encourage people not to see it and rail against it or whatever before I've had a chance to watch the whole thing and then judge it for what it ends up being. That's just my approach. Even with something as bad as the rumored news of Hal dying in episode 1, which I, again, fully acknowledge is a bad idea in my mind, hearing it outright. It could be executed a different way. We obviously allowed for that. But, even I admit that's not a good look. But I am still willing to give it a shot because I feel I have to.
No, I get it. I mean, I don't think anybody should just write it off going in. I mean, you have to see what it is. Mm-hmm. But let's put it this way. We certainly know as Green Lantern fans, there's been enough stuff that's come out to at least make us leery.
Yes.
And to make us nervous. So we're not exactly going in, which may turn out to be for the best. That we're not going in super happy and super, oh God, we can't wait for this, because that just opens up for more disappointment that way. But we are, needless to say, there's reason to be skeptical about, and not just because of how the DCU is kind of going, and who was involved in this project. We have to see, but it's not something that. It's certainly not something that, if this is true, it's not what you would want them to be going, a road you'd want them to go down, just because it's creating unnecessary pushback or a potential pushback right off the bat when they don't need that. They don't need that kind of problem right now.
Yep. All right. Yeah, there's not much more to talk about there, guys. Again, it's all rumors. It's unfounded. We'll know more hopefully by the end of Comic-Con. I think the idea is they're supposed to be showing, I don't think they're showing the full episode. They're showing like the first 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that. I think that's what I heard. I don't know. We'll see, obviously. We'll know by the end of Comic-Con, hopefully, because, people will say something. It's impossible for it not to get leaked.
Yeah, if they show it. If they show enough, they give that answers the question. Or they talk about what answers, anything along that subject, which I don't think they will. I don't think it's going to be so blatantly obvious they're going to discuss it in a Comic-Con. That's one of those things that if you know it's coming, you just better, you can brace for the pushback, but at this point you just pretty much just keep it under the radar and just keep sailing through.
Yeah.
So related to, I guess related to DCU, it's interesting that Superman's cast just continues to grow.
Yeah.
Since we know Guy, we know Guy's in it for a fact, and now we know that Blue Beetle's going to be in it, which isn't that. I don't think it's that surprising. We know that James Gunn had said he was going to be back, which I don't have an issue.
I'm excited to see him. I thought he was cool. I thought he was, again, we talked about it during the Supergirl stuff. I thought it was a decent movie. Have I returned to it? Not much, but I don't hate that movie. So,
and when people try to chalk it up and say, "Hey, look, it's like another DC bomb or whatever," the reality is people have to remember that was an HBO Max movie that they were just so happy with, as far as because of how well it turned out, that they figured, why don't we just release it? Because they figured at the very least you'd make a little bit of money on it no matter what. So as long
and
as
it was a mini cultural event, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I saw lots of hype in the Latin community for that.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the end of the day, that I think it was justified in releasing it, because again, it's not like as long as they didn't spend that much money marketing it, which I'm sure they did not spend a tremendous amount, and it did make tons. I think it only made like a little over 100 million or whatever. But the point is, that's 100 million more that you never would have gotten to begin with, because you were supposed to release it on HBO Max. So
that's true.
Which is kind of like, is one final segue here. That's kind of like how Moana 2 was originally supposed to be a Disney Plus series, and then somebody had the really good idea that why don't we just basically whittle it down a little bit, make it a feature length make it one feature-length movie, make it coherent, and release it, because what we've got to lose. And then the movie went on and made $1 billion. So that was an incredibly brilliant decision, which then contrasts with what I've seen, which is I saw Moana last week. Which the truth is, if you've seen the animated Moana, you've seen the live-action Moana. Just as people have pointed out, slightly less colorful. I think that movie's getting a little more hate than it deserves. I think I understand some of the criticism when the term that's being thrown around or bandied around, like soulless. That might be a little harsh, but I know where they're going with it. When you look at there's more life in the animated version. It's not just that it's more colorful, which it is. It just seems like even the performances seem to be more alive in the animated version. Now I really like God, I forget her last name, Catherine Luaya, whatever. She's really good at Moana. She was well cast. I thought she really has it. So I don't think this movie is going to hurt her. It'll obviously hurt her as far as I doubt she'll be ever playing Moana again in a live action sequel. But because Moana is following the pattern of Snow White, which is kind of embarrassing because it's Snow White without the controversy, and yet it's performing only slightly better. And it's kind of following in the footsteps of Supergirl. I think it'll hold better. I think it's going to hold better than Supergirl. I mean, Supergirl was number 8 last week. It's probably going to be out of the top 10 in weekend 4, which is embarrassing.
Well, it's already moving out of theaters.
Oh yeah, that's part of the reason they dropped a lot. They lost a lot of theaters last week, which I think was the first weekend. I think when they were contractually no longer obligated to keep it in as many theaters, when it became the theater's choice of whether you're going to keep it in how many screens, and it's like, yeah, let's dump it.
Well, there's also the upcoming digital drop.
Well, yeah, but which they still didn't technically confirm. Yeah, I believe. But the point is, the reality is that movie's not making money. So yes, it's going to drop, and it may very well. I would still think it's going to be out of the top 10 because it was barely ahead of. I think it was barely ahead of. I think Disclosure Day, but Disclosure Day was holding better. So there's a chance, depending on how much each movie hemorrhages theaters or screens this week. But yeah, Supergirl is going to come and go like it never even existed. I think there's more excuses for Moana. I think the timing was more lousy for that. I mean, it's sandwiched right after, like in a month and a half, you had Toy Story, you had Minions, and then you had Moana. Plus, we just had a Moana movie less than 2 years ago. The timing is not that doesn't make a lot of sense to do her. And arguably, you can make a case remaking a movie that's only 10 years old makes no sense to begin with. But this summer probably was not the summer to release it, considering there's so much stuff out from a family. Because even Minions obviously has suffered, whether it's suffering from brand fatigue or it's suffering because, again, there's a lot of family movies out there, and that one just didn't seem to draw people in. Either way. But
I wonder what where did Disney learn the lesson that live action remakes are something we want? Because if you look at the history, like Aladdin I remember watching Aladdin with Will Smith and everything. I was just like, I did it because I like Aladdin. It's one of my favorite animated movies of all time. That's the only reason I watched it. What was the most successful live action? Was it Lion King? Because
probably.
Even then, it didn't do that great. Where did they learn the lesson that we want this?
Well, it's because all they care about is it's the IP. Actually, to be fair, for what it's worth, the Lion King, the live action quote unquote Lion King actually did very well. It did 1.6 billion. So it made 543 domestically. It made most of its money overseas, but still, the key to some of these things is if you keep the budget under control. Your live action Aladdin made just a little over $1 billion. It seems like the majority of these movies perform better overseas. That's what it seems. That when you look at these live action adaptations, it seems like the majority, even Lilo and Stitch, made 614 overseas and 423 domestic. So it was barely over $1 billion, which, considering that movie cost $100 million, that was fantastic, and that was close to a 50-50 split. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of minding their own IP and not having to do anything new. But I agree, there wasn't a need or a real reason to do Moana. Because it's a movie that's 10 years old. You don't need to do that. I mean, some people. It's funny. I saw some people talking about Moana, and they were tying it into some of the other live action ones, saying, "Oh, well, Lilo and Stitch. They didn't need to. That movie was relatively new." And it's like, well, that movie was over 20 years old. That movie was like 23 years old.
Did
So at
How to
least
Train Your Dragon do well?
it did okay. I'm gonna look it up as we're talking. It certainly didn't. It certainly did not fail. So there is a certain audience for these, and it's just not that successfully. How to Train Your Dragon 2025 only made 639 million worldwide. So
Yeah.
there was not, and at 150 million dollar budget, which means it was profitable. Which the key is to a lot of these, it's the budget. Lilo and Stitch was 100 million, so that's a really fair budget
Yeah, easy
considering.
ROI there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, the problem with Moana is Moana was like a $250 million budget, so that was crazy. I mean, that's why when we're going to judge Doomsday, that it's going to be hard to judge how successful Doomsday is ultimately. Even if, I mean, Doomsday could be a movie that could make $1.5 billion, but if it's true, what the rumors have been to begin with, that movie is going to end up costing around $450 million from a production budget perspective, then you're talking about a movie that's going to have that one point under that scenario, it would probably turn a profit. But let's say it only made $1 billion. Let's say it quote unquote underachieves dramatically. It makes $1 billion. If your budget's 450, you're technically not making money on that movie based on not certainly not a 3 times multiplier, but a 2.5 times multiplier maybe. But budget is key to all of these things.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
So one last thing before we segue into some feedback, kind of continuing the pattern of what we were talking about. So obviously there was some Doomsday news this week, as we at least know I guess the official, non-official release time, or runtime, excuse me, of the movie, since it could still change, but obviously it can't change too much since it'll lead to the second thing we'll talk about. That Avengers Doomsday is supposed to be 2 hours and 46 minutes. So it will come in higher than Infinity War, but not as high as Endgame, which I guess makes sense. You would assume if Secret Wars, especially if it's not split into two movies, that you assume Secret Wars will be longer than Doomsday, but excuse me, longer than Endgame. But just like Infinity War probably didn't need to be longer than Endgame, it would make sense. I think that Doomsday doesn't need to be as long as Secret Wars. And then we have the fact that for some theaters, which is still weird, that I guess by the time this gets released, this will already have happened since it's supposed to be Monday. Actually, I think the rumor is Monday at 11 Eastern. That certain theaters are going to have tickets on sale already for Doomsday, but it's not the majority of the theaters. It's kind of like the upper echelon theaters that forget Infinity Screens or whatever the hell Disney Marvel is another manufactured term. So I'm going to assume it's like probably the highest quality screens that are not friggin' IMAX. Those are the theaters that are going to supposedly have the tickets on sale, or did by the time you hear this on Monday. So it is weird doing that 6 months in advance, but I guess for those unique screens and the unique auditoriums, I guess that's easier for the theater chains to handle because the movie was going to be playing in it anyway, so it's easy just to designate that one auditorium and say, okay, let's put in a whole day's worth of showings for that movie. We know how long it is. We know the release date, so I guess it's easy to do as long as for at least one auditorium in a multiplex or maybe two, depending on how many you have that meet that criteria. But nonetheless, and by the time not by the time this comes out, but by the time we record the next time, we'll have our Doomsday trailer finally. And the description is not bad, based on the description I read over the weekend of which is different than some of the stuff that people had already seen and what the previous trailer description supposedly was. If this is accurate, I do like this one better. I think this one will have a little more oomph to it than the one we had heard and the one they did the fake AI CGI versions of to try to match the descriptions. So that's it. That's one little Doomsday tidbit before we get to Comic-Con.
When are we supposed to get the Endgame re-release with the stuff that's
September.
supposed to? Okay.
September.
I wonder.
Okay.
No, it
What?
probably doesn't make any sense. I was going to say if it's supposed to come in Sep, would it be far afield for there to be like events set up for Doomsday where it's like a double feature of the re-release of Endgame and Doomsday?
Well, I don't think it's. I don't. The only problem with. I don't see that would be an issue. The night that it opens in December, I don't see that why they wouldn't have a fan event of doing that. I think that
Mhm.
makes perfect sense. I don't think they can do it too much because and know that would they want to because now you're talking about 6 hours of movies. So
Mhm.
that's going to, and again, and I'm not sure how, when you do re-releases when you do double features like that, I'm not sure entirely how it impacts the box office. I'm going to assume the box office would have to be split 50-50 amongst the two movies, which relating to that, the rumor is that Endgame is going to be re-released and the name is going to be different, which means the negative to doing that, if they could do that, is that the additional money that they make with Endgame won't roll into the same. It won't be added on to what they've already earned. So their chance of taking the number one position back from Avatar. To me, it's a waste. I don't really care why they do it. If they do it, I think it's a mistake. I mean, it's Endgame. People know it's Endgame. People are going to be seeing it because A, they like Endgame, and B, because of the added footage in the post credit scene and how it's going to tie into to Doomsday you'll be seeing 3 months later. I don't think you need any more gimmicks than that. I think you'd be wiser just to release it because you probably can make enough money during a re-release of Endgame to get to beat Avatar. I think should be something you'd really want to do. It's your movie.
Mhm.
Avatar, you inherited Avatar. Avatar wasn't really your franchise, but yeah, that's September. So I am looking forward to that.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about the idea of retconning basically a deleted scene into the movie for this new one to have to make sense.
Well, I agree. I agree with that. I think what the biggest problem with that is it essentially goes down the road that I think most of us have already reached the conclusion that essentially phases 4 through 6 have meant almost nothing. That if this movie is really being tied into, it's so much a direct sequel, quote unquote, to Endgame that, and then if you look at what happened in the MCU as a whole, that so few projects in the MCU in phases 4 through 6 either had anything to do with the multiverse or anything of relevance to do with the multiverse in the actual plot of whatever was going on. Like the Marvels ends with something related to the multiverse because of that Zar Ben, whatever the hell their name was, breaking a hole between universes, but that was not the plot of the movie. It had nothing to do with what happened in the movie. So is
Mhm.
it somewhat multiverse related? Yes, but the movie itself really was not revolving around the multiverse at all. That so many of there's very few projects that had anything meaningful to do with the multiverse that it just kind of magnifies the fact that phases 4 through 6 was kind of like the Seinfeld of the MCU, that it really was about nothing.
Yeah.
But
All right. What's next?
all right, I figure we will do some. Let's do some feedback. I'm trying to see how far back we've gone here.
I think we did Monty's congratulations on 600, right?
Did we do that?
If not, we can start there because it's short-ish.
Do you want to do it? You want to read that one?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
All right, so Monty back in May said 600. Wow, that's a lot of episodes. Quite the legacy, appropriately for the subject matter. I hope one day while other casts come and go, LanternCast will remain in some form or other and come to be seen in the same light as CGS and the like. Though I already consider you as such, y'all were my first after all. Butting in right there to say that's high praise, but thank you.
Yes, thank you
Uh,
very much.
anyway, I've been listening to the early episodes again. I'm sorry, and happened to listen to both of your first appearances, and it reminded me of a question I meant to ask Mark regarding his Emerald Dawn script. Were there any twists, dialogue, or anything else you were particularly proud of that you made for that? I know how personal writing can be, so disregard if necessary. The same question, or though more general to Chad, anything in the GL field you have created that you'd like to go into more detail about? Do you want to stop there and answer those and then go back to the state of the books?
Yeah, and you're right. And you're right. These do sound familiar unless we just read it and we almost answered it. But regarding the script, and I did two. I never finished the third. The third would have been Emerald Twilight, a variation on Emerald Twilight. The
Oh, apparently you guys addressed this in an episode with Jim.
Did we? That's why it sounded familiar.
I didn't, but yeah.
But yeah, so if I didn't, then why don't you take it? Because it's more fresh for you, no matter what I said.
Okay. Anything in the geo field you have created that you'd like to go into more detail about? I might have mentioned this before, but I started a creative writing project that I never finished that I would like to return to one day. And that is the story of how Kilowog went from Lantern to core trainer. Like what's the mission or the thing that happened that made him get put into that elevated status that made the Guardians or Salak or whoever look at him and go, it's not enough that he be a Lantern. He needs to train all future Lanterns. So I started writing that. I didn't get very far into that, but it is a project I think about on occasion. Especially since, I don't really have a lot of outlets for creative writing anymore. I've actually thought about becoming more active over on Reddit because, Reddit has absolutely a subreddit for absolutely everything you can possibly think of, including like there's one that's just dedicated to writing prompts. You just go on there and find one and then you post your story and, people either like it or they don't. And I thought that would just be a good way to slowly get myself back into some sort of creative writing. Obviously not for any sort of monetary gain, at least not at first. Not that I have any grandiose plans for that, but just getting back into the habit because that's something I used to enjoy doing so much in my earlier days. In my obviously late teens and in a lot in my 20s, but it's sort of lost in my 30s. So I'd like to kind of come back to that, and that's a story I think about often. Obviously, I think maybe the main one people would expect me to bring up is the Green Lantern documentary that I initially had come to the LanternCast with the idea of. I think that was me biting off more than I could chew. I was a new fan. I was very, very passionate about Green Lantern, and I'd never been like that sucked in by a franchise or a fandom or anything like that before, and I just kind of got swept up in everything and was like, well, what can I add to this? And just started going full bore with this documentary idea that I literally ended up talking to Dan. I got Dan DiDio on the phone for it. I ended up talking to getting the permission from Denny. Talking with him on the phone. The first time I spoke with him ever was over the phone, and he was down to be in it if it came to fruition. But I think that was me just getting lucky in some regards, and not really having an idea of how to move forward with filming or setting up interviews or flying out to interview people or like all of the logistics that would have to come up with it. It was just a pipe dream. I was really just hoping I could, cobble together with willpower and wishes and and luck. I think, hindsight being 2020, I bit off more than I could chew with that, and that there was really a zero chance that was ever going to come to fruition. Now that I look back on not only the idea and how much licensing and can you do something like that and all that. I think if I were to approach that now, my idea for it would be much different. And I've talked about this with Dan before about, maybe breaking Lantern history up into Golden Age, Silver Age, so on and so forth, and releasing unique videos, like documentary style videos on specific eras, so it's not all one big project, and just release all that sort of stuff. But again, I've said over and over again, I am not a fan of video editing and so on and so forth. So even now, it's something that has been adapted and twisted into a much different form. And even if that were not to happen, what if we made episodes of the LanternCast that were documentary style but audio only, where we just discussed, you know, a little bit more produced than like just sitting here and reading off a bullet point list of historical facts from, say, the Golden Age, and a little, and obviously not necessarily just full conversational. There's so much to figure out about how that would look and work. I think those are the two main, GL creations I've thought of over the years, as is the evolution of what the documentary could end up looking like with a more realistic look at what it would take to get it done and what we're capable of. And then my own individual creative writing project of the story of how Kilowog became the trainer of the Corps. Because I think I freely admit, I've not read every Green Lantern issue that's ever been published, but I don't think we ever got that story. And obviously it would be fan stuff. But I'd still, quote unquote, like to be the one to tell it.
Yes, even though they stole your thunder with the animated version of the story to a certain extent, potentially.
Kind of. That was the story of him as a rookie, though, not necessarily how he became trainer.
That is true. That's how he got his feet wet, if you will, and how he started down the road and why he wanted to. But I guess they kind of imply that's how, because he followed in his footsteps and because of the way he survived. Mm-hmm. So looking at this, I think we did do some of these things before. Plus, Monty, were related to where the books are now. It is kind of funny looking at some of it, getting some of our introduction to talking about Gem World and things along those lines related to that. That was back when Odyssey was first coming into the book, give or take. Yeah, so that's kind of funny looking at that. But I think we're gonna, for the sake of time, because I think we have addressed some of this stuff before too. I think we're gonna. Yeah.
And it makes sense that I didn't recognize it. That's my bad, guys. It was addressed in an episode I wasn't on,
and it was and there might have been one part of it, but because it says the writing part we didn't do. The writing part we didn't do. So actually did. That's the truth. So that's why the email looks familiar, but we did talk about the book stuff with Jim. But yes, as far as from a writing perspective, just quickly for me, but the scripts, it's just like working some of the things in about the mythology that we know. Things that changed work, so related to the entity, the parallax entity, working that in to potentially what was going on with Hal, even though there's on the surface there was another reason or an explanation of surface level reason for maybe what Hal ended up where he did, but you also were paving the way for that, for the parallax entity, and just trying to feed working things in that we knew about Hal's future and Guy and John and all that stuff into a base level, like a trilogy of scripts. So that's it. Yeah, I'll do Paul. I know we responded email wise, we responded to Paul, but he said, with all the current appearances of Green Lantern across all types of media, isn't it about time you treated us, your loyal listeners, to another State of the Green Lantern Union podcast? I sure hope the answer is yes, and that is secretly recorded in the background and ready to be released shortly. If not, maybe kindly get to it. Thanks for all the great content and insightful takes on everything Green Lantern, and keep up the excellent work. And he's got a follow-up too. But I guess we probably can entertain doing that in the fall. It may not be the rosiest one if things, depending how things go with the series. Between the books and the series, it's like...
Yeah, we know how Myron already feels about lanterns, so there's that. Plus, I don't know, especially with all the GL creators, would we bring Will or Donnie or Adam or Ralph or anybody else into that? How would that work? It's always very hard to get a very large group of people together on a single call, because there needs to be more structure to it. Everybody make sure you mute. Raise your hand before you speak, so we're not talking over each other and making things harder for the editing process, so on and so forth. But also, that also by nature just ends up making it longer too. So it's not saying that we're not going to do it. We usually do Green Lantern, State of the Green Lantern Union, every 2 years, and usually it happens around November-ish in terms of release, which I mentioned in my response to Paul in an email. But I think too, by the time the fall rolls around, this first season should be done. So that's actually a better time to release it than it would have done earlier this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think everything's shaping up for it. It probably be a better referendum on where things actually are. That we do it after the series has come out, and we'll also gonna have a better idea. You like to think where the Green Lantern book is going once we kind of move beyond. No offense to Kyle, once we move beyond this pointless Odyssey arc, and whatever comes next, that we'll be into it by then. Going through Paul's follow up real quick, that he says he always enjoyed our podcast. It's the first one I listen to every week as soon as it's released. And let's see, I think we took care of the Discord stuff. I believe I did that. Keep up the great reviews and all your hard work. It's difficult to find a podcast that loves Green Lantern as much as I do, but still manages to be honest about some of the not so great things. Absolute Green Lantern, which could have been amazing. Sincerely, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolute is something that I think Chad and I are both kind of flushed down the toilet, and if we have to revisit it, to just do.
I fully admit it's gotten better, but you lost me. I'm sorry. You lost the chance to get me back. That's as simple as it is.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right, should we do this text? Since
that would be from Lance, isn't it? I believe it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's Lance.
I believe so.
Sure.
It says, hey all, just listened to last week's Emerald Influence episode and wanted to point out how good the podcast has gotten. You've both brought your outside interests into the show, which has improved the listening experience while you go over the material we're all interested in. I've been listening and working on an actual feedback contribution. I may have missed this year's Green Lantern Day, but I'm excited for GL June.
Thank you as always, Lance. That was very nice. And we appreciate your feedback.
I like doing Emerald Influence. I have an idea for another one already, but Mark is really not going to want to do it, so it'll be a while before we get around there.
Oh, God. I don't even want to ask.
It's an issue of Legion.
It depends. As long as I have the issue, Chad. I mean, as long as you give me the material, I'm willing to take one for the team, Lord.
I believe it's it's considered the main story of why the Green Lantern Corps doesn't exist in the Legion's future.
That would be interesting. So, okay, we gotta just like a famous first. There's a lot of. I mean, I still would actually, because I see this all the time, because I have the reprint of the second part of it staring me in the face because it's sitting on a shelf downstairs. I would like to do not that it's Green Lantern related clearly, but I'd like to do the Hulk and the Abomination. I'd like to do the first appearance, that first two Tales to Astonish, or Astonishing Tales, whichever the hell it was. When they first Gil Kane, that was Gil Kane art too, for what it's worth. All right, so let's do a NOS in the GL36 and the Parallax Paradox and call it a day.
Yep, let's do that.
All right, so hey guys, I just finished reading Green Lantern 36 and I'm incredibly conflicted. Join the club. It is definitely a good issue, but my thoughts are all over the place. I wanted to write in and share this rant to help process everything and see what the general consensus is among you guys and the listeners. Regarding the massive elephant in the room with Jade, the plot development is quite fascinating. Ever since her return, DC has been showing that she isn't over Kyle, yet no one actually addressed it from Kyle's side until Green Lantern 36. Even throughout her appearances in the current JSA run, the writers implied she was struggling to move on. Because of that, seeing her and Kyle still holding a candle for each other actually makes sense. Yeah, I guess it's the sloppy ending too, when things are not resolved properly. It always, I think that always opens the door for revisiting things in interpersonal relationships. It's because the closure was never there.
Yeah, I've fallen behind on my reading. Just being 100% honest, I've got other stuff on my mind lately, so I just haven't sat down to catch up on all the titles that I've been wanting to keep up with, and JSA is one of them. I have far too many issues of various series banked, and I just haven't caught up on JSA.
But on the bright side, you should be able to catch up soon, because I think that book is about to die. I think it's ending. So this simultaneously revives an overlooked plot point that Kyle never truly got over Jade. If I remember correctly, that unresolved feeling was the exact reason he initially broke up with Sora. Well, it's more the other way around, because he lied about the tether, about the emotional tether that supposedly he felt, or he saw that he was connected to Sora, and he lied about it because he knew the connection was with Jade. Of course, right after that, Jade was erased from existence. The New 52 was an absolute disaster for Kyle's romantic history. Well, don't don't tell Cal that about going forward with Carol as moving forward from that point. One girlfriend vanished from reality. Donna Troy's history was rewritten so thoroughly that she might as well have been erased. Alex DeWitt remained dead, and Sora was stuck under Colin Bunn's control, keeping her out of Kyle's books entirely. That messy shuffling is how we randomly ended up with the Kyle and Carol Ferris pairing, which was a bizarre choice, right on cue. Yeah, let's be Sora had every right to be pissed at Kyle. Multiple times, but that one was especially so.
I don't like the Donna Troy stuff, and by that I mean how they basically just forget it happened, because I think that was a good relationship.
I do too.
Kyle. I think those two were good together, but not meant for each other, and approached how they ended that relationship in a very adult, emotionally mature way, the way they ended that. And I think that type of relationship and how it ended and how they just realized they weren't for each other was a good growth moment for both of them. So erasing it in any way, shape, or form makes no sense to me.
I agree. I thought Donna and Kyle seemed more on equal footing, I think, in a way. On one level, and Donna kind of was taking the lead because she was more experienced in the superhero biz.
Yeah.
So I think it kind of balanced out well. Even if we overlook how poorly the original Kyle homecoming arc ended for them, Jade still stands out as Kyle's most deeply developed relationship. I still would prefer Alex, personally. They were fantastic for the majority of their history, even if the eventual breakup slightly soured that legacy, you think? As for the main narrative, I cannot say I'm entirely surprised by the direction, but having Kyle back front and center in his own book is wonderful. It feels great that the focus is shifting away from Odyssey. Even though we will likely get a dedicated spotlight issue exploring her origin down the line. The book is not shifting away from Odyssey enough. I think he could be correct. It's wishful thinking based on, since we're talking about what the last issue we've actually read and talked about and that's come out, it hasn't shifted enough away from Odyssey. Odyssey is still a speed bump in moving plots forward. Switching gears to your recent Parallax episode, the handling of the storyline in Green Arrow was incredibly strange. Based purely on what was on the page, Parallax had made a deal with Amanda Waller. This happened around the time Waller was also bargaining with Tharos, which is why the sector was off limits for Lanterns and the crime syndicate of Earth 3. There were so many moving parts, but unfortunately Mark Waid never delivered any of those setups, leaving the whole era feeling entirely pointless. Well, I guess that would make sense. But could have been, which of course he follows up on that. During that specific arc, Parallax and Oliver Queen were fighting out of bounds in the Brian Michael Bendis version of the Legion of Superheroes timeline. In the prelude to that fight, Ollie was actively teaming with the Legion to hunt Parallax down. The narrative heavily implied that both Merlin and Amanda Waller had entered an alliance with Parallax, allowing him to manipulate the Green Arrow timeline. While that specific thread completely stalled out, the great news is that Joshua Williamson has shown a massive interest in writing Legion material across Green Arrow and Superman, and he is scheduled to pilot their upcoming ongoing series. Because the last time we saw Parallax, he was stranded in that exact future era, there's a very, very real chance Williamson will pull him back into the spotlight. I would love to hear your take on these developments during the next show. Best, Anas. The part that confuses me is, do we actually know Parallax was quote-unquote stranded? And
I don't think he was.
Yeah, because it's Parallax.
Yeah.
That's the only thing when I was reading it. It's like, unless there was something in a specific issue that made that clear, I would assume Parallax is there for a reason and he can hop and skip because it's Parallax. I mean, he didn't lose that ability, because even post 0 hour Parallax had technically I think we know post 0 hour Parallax had the ability to hop and skip, because that's how come we know we know after the fact, we know that he knew he was going to die in Final Night, but he went anyway, because he had already went to the future to see what the outcome was, and he knew he died, which is one of the reasons I think he brought Oliver back as a final.
The Williamson Legion series that's upcoming is interesting to me, because I always give the Legion a chance. It doesn't always work out. In fact, most of the time it doesn't. For me personally, I don't necessarily mean success of the series. I just mean and I couldn't possibly quantify to you exactly what makes a good Legion comic book for me. I know it when I read it, and I'll definitely be giving this one a chance. But it already has a little bit of a negative demerit towards it because I don't like the art I'm seeing for that series. Is there a chance for Williamson to pull him back into the spotlight, given the last time Williamson wrote the Legion and stuff, who was dealing a lot with Superman and Parallax and that sort of stuff? Yeah, you're right. That's possible, but I really don't think it's his opening move. So if we see Parallax in Williamson's Legion, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I wish that wasn't the case because it might actually give me a desire to jump on that book early. But I would agree with you. Let's just deal with his follow up stray thoughts in another email. I don't know how long the Jade bit will last, but do you think that at some point DC is going to pull she's a JSA character, so we're taking her from Adam's stunt? Well, since the book is being canceled, I don't see why that would be a contradiction now.
Unless it's being replaced by a different title that also uses JSA members, like Infinity Inc. That'd be cool to see.
Adams got Jade and Kyle together in one issue, and it took 12 to 15 issues to put Hal and Carol together. Technically 12, but their reunion got delayed thanks to Hal being kidnapped by Waller. But Kyle has a lot less time to work with. He's on a much shorter timeline. His rope is much shorter than Hal's, no pun intended. So you know that he's got to cut to the chase and get that over with. And whatever he's going to do. So since we have 5 girlfriend candidates for Kyle to be with, which would your favorite be, or how would you rank them? Alex, Donna, Jade, Sora. He has maybe Odyssey. I don't think Odyssey is going to be a love interest, but
you better not be. I can see the. I
could too. We discussed groundwork. This. Yes, we discussed. Yeah.
I really don't want it.
Go ahead, rank them.
Obviously, she would be last. Despite my objections, Jade's number 1. Number 2 would be Sora, only because number 3, I think Alex should stay dead. I don't think there's much merit in returning her.
I think he's just talking about ranking where they.
Okay.
But you approach it.
Well, he says since we have 5 girlfriend candidates.
I know, but that seems odd because we know Alex is still dead. Like you rank them the way you want to rank them, and I'll rank them my way.
So Jade, Sora, Alex, and Donna, and then Odyssey last. Donna towards the end because, like I just said, I think the way that relationship ended was growth for both of them, and that should be maintained in their personality and their emotional development as characters. So I think them coming back together would just undo that work. So I don't want them to be together. So I think we saw that era. We got a lot out of that era. We don't need to return to that era because we got what we needed from it. So Jade, Sora, Alex, Donna, Odyssey.
Obviously, Odyssey's dead last.
Yep.
The only one who I rank lower than Odyssey might be Joe, because I probably dislike Joe more right now. But that's because they're almost like purposely writing her to be unlikable, in my opinion. So Alex is number 1. I would say Alex number 1, Donna number 2, Sora number 3, Jade number 4, and then Odyssey.
I think for me, my ranking was just like what he talked about, girlfriend candidates. Like if we're going to pair Kyle up in the ongoing story right now with somebody, who would you want to see in the ranking? If we're talking all-time girlfriends and who was best, that's a much different list for me.
Yeah, and that's how I approach them. I approached them, who is either the best match for Kyle, what the relationships were like. So that's why to me Alex remains number 1. And it's tough between Donna and Sora as far as I'm concerned. But I think I'll give the edge to Donna, and then Sora and Jade, just because again that relationship doesn't mean as much to me, and again because of how it ended, it's like good. So
yeah. And other than that, I think that's it, right?
Yep, that will be it for tonight. So we actually got a lot done tonight.
For sure. I will make one last mention here because we're coming up on Comic-Con. Keep an eye on DC's store online as we go through San Diego. And I have no idea when it could possibly drop. It could be before the con, during the con, or after the con. just keep an eye out, set up a Google alert. I don't know what the hell you need to do it, but if you want to get any of the Lantern merchandise that's supposed to be releasing on the DC shop, that's in tandem with what's supposed to be some of what's supposed to be available during SDCC, just keep an eye on the store. I'm gonna be trying to get that keychain for sure. But yeah, just keep an eye out because that's supposed to be coming up soon.
Did you get your Sentinel figure?
I did not. I have not pre-ordered anything. Just don't have the funds right now for
it's actually available again.
various reasons I can't discuss. But yeah.
Yeah, it's actually back. I know it was gone in GameStop. I just brought it back up. It's actually available again. Unrelated to Sentinel, your package went out, so you probably should get it by the end of the week.
Oh.
But yes, that's the sense. That's the thing that I found interesting about that drop this week is the fact that, like in Big Bad Toy Store, the one of the three main figures in that wave that you could order anywhere. The one that sold out first was Black Adam. I thought that was fascinating.
The balance of power is about to shift in the DC.
Not Sinestro, it was Black Adam. But yeah, a lot of people have complained about Sentinel based on the repaint and how they mailed it in. The figure's nice. I mean, I didn't really want it anyway, but I was kind of annoyed. But by the time the link actually got published anywhere that I saw it was already sold out at the time of GameStop. But obviously, it's back in stock currently as you and I are recording this on Wednesday night at 11:30 Eastern. That if I wanted it, I could pre-order it. Now you could get shafted. This could be one of those second wave of pre-orders, and when people find their pre-orders canceled, as opposed to pulling the trigger early like we did with what was the one we did last?
The Green Lantern figure, Rebirth, or sorry, Emerald Twilight.
No, it was something after. I thought we did something after that. I thought there was another one that we did after the Emerald Twilight one. Was it maybe the Page Puncher Howl wasn't that as difficult to find?
Jessica?
That was right before Tal though. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking something. Unless I'm thinking when Larfleet's dropped. Maybe. I don't know. But you're right. The Emerald Twilight one was the most memorable one we've done this year.
All right. Well, people want to reach out to us. What do they do?
LanternCast.com. The email is lanterncast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Blue Sky, Twitter, Facebook, #GeoCast to track us down. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, wherever you listen to us on. Please leave us a positive review. Last but not least, if you'd like to leave us a text or a voicemail, 708 Lantern, and let us know what you think.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.